if you can just tell me a little bit about the program at No Longer Bound and what your role is.
Okay. My name's Carol Smith. I am in charge of revenue at No Longer Bound. So we are a long-term faith-based residential treatment program for men in addiction. We're located in Cumming, Georgia, and we've actually been here for 30 years. And so our model is that we earn 50% of our revenue through our social enterprises. So we have thrift stores and a car donation program, and we fundraise the rest. And that allows us to be one of the cheapest treatment programs in the nation. And we are also a 1-year program, meaning the men come and live and work on our campus while they're receiving residential care for 1 full year. And so my job is to create the revenue so that the men can be accepted into the program. We do want them to pay intake fees because we always want men to have skin in the game for their own recovery. But the truth is addiction can wreak financial havoc in people's lives. And so we also aspire to raise enough money that we can scholarship men in when they need financial assistance.
Great, thanks. And you were one of the grant recipients this year, one of the bigger ones. And how did you use the money that you gave?
Well, we started trying to initiate last year regular hiking trips for our men. So as I mentioned, we're a 1-year residential program, so men live and work here on our campus. And so we try to create sober outings for them for a lot of reasons. Just it's healthy and good to get them off campus. And then also we want them to know how they're going to be in relationship with other people, doing what sorts of activities when they leave here, because the activities and the relationships they had while they were in addiction may not be the healthiest. And so we started hiking trips just because it was inexpensive to take the men off campus for a hike, but it was received very well. And then we wanted to start taking them camping, but we just didn't have all the camping equipment that we needed. And so the P-Man Foundation was so generous to give us $5,000 for camping equipment and hiking equipment. And so now these Wild at Heart camping trips that we take the men on are actually part of our curriculum. So when they get to a certain phase of their program, we take the men out for a 3-day Wild at Heart camping trip. And the lessons that they learn while they're out in nature are intended to mirror some of the challenges that they're going to have in early recovery. So for instance, they're going to encounter adversity in recovery, and you encounter adversity in hiking and camping. We want them to experience the awe and wonder of nature and be able to experience that as a gift of God, because their relationship with God will help them in their early recovery. And we just want them also to know that they're going to encounter things that they don't expect, and that you can't control all outcomes, but you can move through challenges nonetheless. And so it's super cool because the guys come back with all sorts of learnings that they have experienced on these trips. You know, we had a guy who was crossing a river by foot and lost his sandal in that experience. And so then he had to make it through the rest of that day's hike with one shoe missing. We have people who really literally have never been out in nature before. We had one man who we hiked up to a 50-foot waterfall, and he asked if it was real, he had never experienced anything like that before. And so the gift that you all gave us is really creating a lot of new experiences for our men, and we're super grateful.
Great. I think I was going to just ask about the best moment, but it sounds like you might have already described some of the better moments, but are there any other ones?
Well, so I don't obviously go on these camping trips. It's, the men in our program led by male staff and or sometimes volunteers. But I feel like what the staff says when they come back is just how exhilarated that the men are on the trip. And they spend time around the campfire at night and process what they learned during the day. And they say all sorts of eloquent things about overcoming adversity and making it up the hill and doing something new for the first time. And to me, I'm a lover of hiking and camping as well. And so I love that they're learning an activity that they'll be able to do after they graduate from No Longer Bound's program, and they'll be able to continue with it.
And that is so much the point of what we're trying to achieve, is give men and women an opportunity to find a new hobby where you can go out and do things, with your friends and your family and, the greater community, and have something new to fall back on instead of what they knew before.
Yes.
That's awesome. Um, so the grant money impacted about how many people?
So the men who hike every other weekend, that's usually groups of anywhere from like 22 to 30 men. And so that over the course of the year has happened. We spent your money in a couple of batches. Initially, we just we bought backpacks and things that we could just include the whole batch of men as we went on hiking trips. But most recently, I believe our largest camping trip that we've taken, because now we have the sleeping bags and the sleeping mats and the cook equipment and the tents. We bought a couple of big tents. So the most recent camping trip included 12 men at a time. And so that's a first that we've not ever been able to do before.
That's great. So the grant changed your program in what way?
It just creates a new outlet for teaching. So at No Longer Bound, we, as I mentioned, are a faith-based program. And so we also are a clinical program. So everything we do is an integration between our faith-based curriculum and our evidence-based clinical care. And so guys do all sorts of classroom assignments. They do group therapy. They do all these things on our campus. But to be honest, I feel like being able to go out into the woods has given us an outside classroom that we didn't have before. And so the men are able to have new perspectives from those experiences of talking about their lessons while they're in a different environment.
Love that. Love that, love that. All right, so then now looking at this next year, what did your organization have planned for next year? And what role could we possibly play in that?
Well, we have lots of initiatives for next year. One of the things that we're working on is continuing to stay connected with our alumni. We have the goal of being able to measure long-term outcomes. Right now, we only measure completion of the program, but we're not measuring long-term outcomes, which for us is we're not going to measure sobriety because you can be sober and miserable. We're going to measure physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, and relational health. And so we do have somebody on staff right now dedicated to creating experiences for alumni once a month. So it could be something in that category, but it also could be, like, I haven't really thought about it all the way yet, but it also could be just new experiences for the men that fall into the category of sober living. For instance, we had a softball team that formed this year that was a mix of alumni staff. So some of our staff are alumni and alumni out in the community, and they just competed against other softball teams in the area. And so that was super fun for them. And so we're going to continue to look for things like that.
Perfect. Love that.